Maybe you've stopped believing in people, in promises, maybe even in yourself. Maybe life has knocked the breath out of you. Dreams once bright now lie scattered like broken glass. You step carefully, afraid to hope, afraid to bleed again. Belief feels far away, like a star you can see but will never touch. But sometimes, belief doesn't return with fire or thunder. Sometimes, it sneaks back in the quietest way. A boy pressing one shaky note on a dusty piano in an abandoned house. And that sound was enough to make him believe again. The house at the end of Maple Street looked abandoned. Paint peeling, windows clouded, a for sale sign leaning in the yard. But one evening, 12-year-old Ethan slipped inside. Not to steal, not to break, just to escape the shouting at home. Inside, the air smelled of dust and silence. Every step echoed. And in the corner of the living room stood a piano. Keys yellowed. One leg cracked. But when Ethan pressed a finger down, a single note rang out. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't tuned. But in that empty house, it sounded like hope. Ethan began visiting every day after school. He'd dust off the keys with his sleeve. Press 1, then 2, then 3. Clumsy at first, like a toddler learning to walk. But little by little, songs emerged. Not Mozart, not Beethoven. Simple melodies. But they filled the house with life again. Neighbors who walked by paused at the gate. Some shook their heads. Just noise. But one woman lingered. An old widow named Mrs. Carter. She leaned on the fence and whispered, "That boy is trying to make something beautiful out of broken things." One day, Mrs. Carter stepped inside. She set down a bag of groceries and asked, "Would you like me to show you a chord?" Ethan froze. No one had ever offered to teach him anything. He nodded. She pressed her fingers gently on the keys. C, E, G. A chord. Belief, she said, is like this. One note is fine on its own, but when you put 3 together, it becomes something bigger. Ethan tried. His hands trembled, but when the chord rang out, he smiled for the first time in months. But belief doesn't come easy. There were days Ethan's fingers stumbled. Days the house was too cold to sit in long. Days his father's words, "You're worthless," rang louder than the piano. Once, in anger, he slammed the lid shut. "Why bother? I'll never be good." Mrs. Carter only said, "Child, the tree doesn't bear fruit the first spring. Keep watering. Imagine planting a seed. For weeks you see nothing, just dirt. But beneath the soil, roots are forming, hidden but alive." That's what she meant. Belief grows in the dark long before the fruit appears. And so he did. Chord by chord, note by note, belief, watered daily, began to root. Months later, the school announced a talent night. Ethan almost didn't sign up, but Mrs. Carter pressed a hand on his shoulder. "Play one song, not for them, for you." The night of the recital, the auditorium buzzed. Parents in rows, kids laughing backstage. Ethan's hands shook as he sat at the school piano. The spotlight blinded. The crowd blurred. He almost ran. But then, he remembered the empty house, the cracked piano, the single note that sounded like hope. He closed his eyes, and he played. The melody was simple, imperfect, but it was his. And when he finished, silence. Then applause. Real, genuine. For the first time, Ethan believed the words he whispered to himself. "I am not worthless." The next day, Ethan ran to the old house to tell Mrs. Carter. But when he got there, he found only silence. Her chair was empty, her groceries left on the table. On the piano sat a folded piece of paper. A note. In shaky handwriting it read, "Keep playing, even when no one listens, especially then, because music is faith you can hear." Tears blurred his eyes, but he sat down and played anyway. For her, for himself, for belief. Ethan didn't become famous. He didn't tour the world, but he kept playing. At weddings, churches, in nursing homes, anywhere a piano waited to be touched. Years later, when his own daughter asked, "Daddy, why do you play so much?" he answered, because every note reminds me to believe again. So maybe tonight you feel like Ethan once did. Empty house, silent keys, a world that tells you you're worthless. But belief isn't lightning. It's not one grand miracle. It's a single note played faithfully until it becomes a song. So let me ask you, if you had to choose one word to play like a note in your life tonight, just one, what would it be? Share that word quietly in the comments. Don't lose belief. Don't lose the chord. Because even if your life feels cracked and out of tune, faith can still play through you. Keep pressing keys. Keep striking notes, even when no one claps. Because one day, someone will hear your song, and it will make them believe again too. If this story helped you believe again, hit like, subscribe for daily motivational stories, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes, belief comes not in miracles, but in melodies.